All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk workshop here this Tuesday, January 16th, shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am tardy. My apologies just there. To all of us just patiently waiting inside our live trading room and on YouTube and social media alike. Great to see Chuck, Grant, David, Mark, Alicia, have Charles, Manny, Martin, Kathleen, got Wayne, Joanne, Lee, Jeff, a full house. Actually, just joining us right there inside our live trading room, or otherwise, like I just said before, on social media at Cyber Trading You. You don't have me on webcam today, so I saved you there pretty much from seeing this ugly mug. No, actually, I got a bunch of stuff going on around my home office, around my whole apartment now. They're finally doing some much needed renovations around my apartment. So a lot of banging and drumming going on, but otherwise, I'll be back on webcam next week, just at Cyber Trading You. Be a friend and tell a friend. Look to spread the good word right there, just on all of our social media streams and platforms alike. Now, with that said, wow, we have had a pretty interesting morning, at least coming off Martin Luther King. And normally for a holiday, it takes like a couple days for the market to trickle back into its normal volume and volatility. Hey, we were coming off the CPI last week, so people were waiting on that. And then I'm sure a bunch of families took off just with the weekend in mind, with the 3-day weekend, maybe making it a 4-day weekend. And either way, it's not always right away coming off a major holiday where you're expecting, oh, for this to start moving, this to start moving. I mean, hey, we're beginning to get into earnings season again. All the banks reported on Friday, or most of them did, and got a couple today and this week. But it's just to say that, again, we're not getting all the mega caps right away. So it's going to take an extra week for things to get back into the swing of things. Not only that, actually, just for what's ahead, I don't want to go too much into this, but even for what's ahead, February, we got Washington's birthday in a few weeks' time from now. So uh, there's always something that will pop up that kind of puts a pause on the overall volatility of the stock market, of a lot of the trades that we were following. Now, in the sense of Mara, hey, how could I not start off by talking about Mara? Because it's one that we've had our eyes on for a long time here in Traders Talk, I'm sure consecutive weeks at this point. But since Traders Talk last week, this thing's taken a huge hit. Ended up falling, breaking below big chart level that we had back from like 2670 it was. We had 2670, I think this was right here, this big resistance back from the week before. And we were looking for that to become support, or hoping for it to be, in order for us to see another move up higher. Well, if Bitcoin's not going to look to hold support, and if we're going to see a shake on that, well, of course, we're going to see these miners look to go with it. But man, that does not necessarily mean that we would be seeing Mara at damn near 18 or much under that from earlier this morning, right? So even dating back from just from Thursday last week, that was, Mara broke below this big level, 2670-ish it was, and really started a big pullback. But, hey, that's where you say the more it drops, okay, like, all right, where could you find support? And the more it dropped throughout that day, I was like then saying, okay, well, damn, like if this is really going to get down to like $20, then perhaps even we can go lower and down towards a level like the level I had was basically this. It was like 1918, 1920-ish, back from like even the weekly graph here, holding really well as support back from early 2022. It broke under it. It held under it as resistance. Well, it broke over it. When a stock breaks above resistance and it pops off of it, perhaps resistance could become support. And going into Friday, just the end of last week, I was hopeful to see that happen. Well, obviously, over time, throughout Friday, we did not really see that support hold. It started to, but then it eventually broke lower, right? So let me even pull that up for right now. This all plays into basically the move that Mara made this morning. But, I'll kind of tell you what happened on Mara for me earlier today. I mentioned it for all of us inside our live trading room, to where I didn't really give this the light of day this morning. I didn't really care about it at all this morning. I didn't really set any levels up on my graph. So where you happen to see this line I'm plotting coming up, we'll make it purple, I guess, just daily chart level, weekly chart level. It broke under it. It broke back above it. And at first, things were looking pretty good. It made like a 50-cent move off of it at the time. I even remember writing that in our chat board back on Friday. Well, again, we can mention this on a litany of other trades. I mention this every week here in Traders Talk. So once again, I'll say, what happens when the foot's taken off the gas pedal for this stock, for this chart? Well, the difference between a stock and a car, an automobile that you may be driving, is that when you take your foot off the gas pedal for a car, well, the car just stops. The car does not go in reverse for you and tank 60 miles, 70, 80 miles per hour the other direction, does it? At least the court won't buy that. So it's just to say, at least here, the stock, Mara, the chart, ended up seeing this make a lower high. It paused, but then it ended up pulling back. And you know what's more bound to happen once this support level keeps getting poked at over time. This one here. So eventually it broke below it. Eventually support became resistance and it tanked into the afternoon. So at first, it could have been a strong level. Over time, though, we realized it wasn't. And once again, once it breaks down from this as support going into this morning, even, I would be expecting that 1920 ish, 1919 area to be a strong resistance here for today. Now, with that in mind for today, I just mentioned it before, but coming off a major holiday, I know better, and I'm sure most of our students here know better to where you're not trying to be aggressive with your trading. In fact, I want to pull this up inside our room here, see if I can get it posted on kind of just on social media, all of us right now. Yeah, here we go. I just wrote it before. I want to get the snipping tool up right now and just show all of us on stream. I wrote this at 8:35 this morning. 8:35 this morning. Market down, plus coming off a major holiday equals I'm taking it lightly today. There's my ugly mug. But, otherwise, at least with that, I did not give Mara the light of day. I actually didn't have a student private chat me this morning asking what I was looking at. But if, I were to, normally I get a couple and I always, invite you to. Well, if anyone were to have messaged me at 9 o'clock this morning, I'd be telling them, hey, I didn't even plot any levels on this Mara chart here. I didn't. Really, the only levels I started plotting on this graph were on a coaching call I just had with one of our students before. So once the market opened today, what happened? Well, Mara dropped. I mean, we saw this pull back pretty quickly, and it's not really much of a surprise just yet. I mean, last 2 days we saw a drop off. For anyone here on social media, especially inside our live trading room, because I know like Bill, Grant, Wayne, etc. I know you know this. But for anyone new, anyone on social media, I love Bitcoin and crypto. I'm a bull long term. I'm always looking for a move on Mara, especially a bounce or a breakout. Either or. I'll take either or. Bounce or breakout. But I'm looking for a move right where I could buy. So when I see this drop off right away, I'm thinking, all right, well, if there's a really easy to see level that I can quickly gravitate to, then I could try and jump in. But if it keeps dropping off after 9:35 and the time is like 9:40 in the morning, 9:41 in the morning, 9:40, well, that's where I'm going to ask us right here, especially those that know, like I'd said before, Bill, Wayne, Grant, what time normally do we expect reversals to happen? If it's not at 9:35 in the morning or right before 9:35 in the morning, then what time is it pretty much afterwards? Manny, Wayne, Sam, yeah, 10:15, 10:30, right? So when Mara started to bounce back up out of nowhere here, I was a bit thrown off. Especially since I didn't have any levels set. I mean, hey, what if there was a strong level from the daily chart, around 1750-ish or 1740-ish for that matter? I still wouldn't tell you with a straight face that I definitely would have jumped in there. But if I had my levels already set, if I knew where the big money was trading at beforehand, you better believe I'll have at least a little bit more confidence in me to try. You know what I mean? But it just goes to show, hey, this popped up pretty quickly. And unfortunately, I wasn't there to take the initial entry. All right. Well, key phrase initial. So over time, we ended up working with what we were dealt with here, right? Now, this made a very strong bounce back up, basically over $1 bounce back up towards where it was trading at prior to the market opening, right? All right. Well, you see the purple line at the top of the screen there. I did delete one of the lines just before, so the answer to a degree was on the screen just earlier. But if I don't have any levels set on this graph just yet, and this is starting to bounce back up here pretty suddenly, and I think that there could be a chance to jump in, then let me ask let me ask all of our students here inside our trading room. When you're trading yourself, when you're about to jump in a trade or when you're looking at a stock, regardless of Mara here, what levels do you find yourself to be the most confident in using? Now, the way I'm phrasing that question, I'm framing that question specifically because there's going to be more than just one answer I'm looking for here. I'm asking students that are trading themselves, that are risking money themselves on trades that they're taking. So, when you're pulling the trigger, when you're looking at a stock and, hey, you don't have any levels set yet, what prices, what levels come to mind to you that you would feel overtly confident in at least considering? Now, a lot of us are answering 50-cent levels, whole numbers, and hey, that's part of the answer. That's part of it. That's our North Star. There is going to be another answer, though, here for this one. I mean, of course, that's the first one that you could think about. For a trade like Mara here, I'd probably just resort to whole numbers. I would not really be too jumpy to every 50 cents. This is a level 3 stock, I'd say, category 3 stock at least, sometimes a level 4. So maybe 18, maybe 19 there, right? Possibly. Sam, the VWAP, possibly, right? That could be a good one. You want to see how it looks at least prior to the opening bell. You want to see how it looks prior to you jumping in. If the stock is very chippy and going around that VWAP price quite often, not like holding it well, then I wouldn't say so, but it's possible. I mean, you can, I guess, say that on any trade, right? Or on any price. But, we'll consider VWAP there. Now, otherwise, a lot of us are saying, though, the closing bell print, and then otherwise the opening bell print, right? Now, if you were with me in the morning on the audio while I was on the mic with Fausto, you heard me mention, well, hey, the stock is moving back up towards its open price here, basically where it was at right when the market opened. And here on Bookmap, I'll show you. It's at 1863, a 565,000 share block print that got filled there right at the market open. Like Alan says, who most recently chatted here, big money. Yeah, I'd say that's big money, if anything, right? Now, compare that to some of the iceberg orders that were at least out there this morning. This did have a few different icebergs out there. Well, this one at least. This one was at 18 bucks. Whole number level, one of the lines that we just plotted. 209,000 shares. It's pretty damn big to me. Let me ask us though. I think you know the answer if you've been a member here inside our live trading room. But what's a bigger size? You tell me what a larger number is. 209,000 or 565,000? You tell me. And we know the answer. But if we're factoring 18 in as a key level, oh, it's a whole number. Well, yeah, of course. Not only is it a whole number, but it just blatantly shows a 210,000 share iceberg here. So this, of course, is a level 18. Well, if this is, of course, a level, then how meaningful, how obvious should this be then? 1863, 565,000 share block print, right? Now, one other thing, though, is we'll doll this chart up here in just a second. We have a few lines already, but, some of us already wrote it in the chat. I hope I can go back to it with the holiday, right? We were off yesterday, Martin Luther King. Hope I can go back to this. So it'd suck if I'm not able to show it. I got the cheat code to basically show you, but, really at the closing price back on Friday, the last trading day, and just from last week, I'm certain that we had perhaps an even larger transaction that got filled there. All right, what's a larger size? 565,000 or 806,000? So this right here is the closing bell print just from the previous trading day, right? Just from the previous trading day. Now, it's not just the previous trading day. It's Friday. And that means that this closing price at 1898 is not just the closing price from the previous trading day, but it is the closing price from last week's candle. right? And, hey, going into this morning, that is a point of significance to me. So we have two levels that we'll look to plot right here. 1898, which, mind you, is right there next to 19. We assume 19 to be a level. We assume it. But, hey, when we have this 806,000 share block print filled there from the end of last week on well, that's going to provide some extra padding to that 19 level, right? You got to believe that 19 level is now going to be that much stronger with that 806,000 share block print. So we have that, and then we'll also go. We had the 1863, right? Basically, right there, right? Basically, right there. Now, there's a lot of lines it might look like here. I'm going to zoom in, make it easy to see. Just give me a sec. I don't like having so many lines in my graph either, trust me. But when you have it pretty much set here, a little bit easier on the eyes to kind of see where support resistance is. And the more it goes up, then you'll kind of see, all right, what's your next level here over time? More or less, from the time where this did pop here pretty suddenly, it threw me for a loop. Fausto took a nice trade on, I think it was Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was Mara he jumped in. Maybe it was Mara he actually jumped in on as it ran up from this point. Hey, I'm thrown off because I didn't have my level set, but even if I did, this popped randomly, kind of in the sense of the cyber clock time, after 9:35 and prior to 10:30, 10:15. So I am playing by the rule book here where I'm normally not trying to just jump right in there. Well, hey, it did pop. So that's where we have to say, let's just kind of work with what we're dealt with and say, if this could break above resistance and it could run from resistance for Sam, Kath, and all of our students here in the chat board, what do we expect resistance to get flipped into? Support. Okay. So by the time this breaks above 18 and it runs up, well, it's easy to say what happens here looking at this already painted graph, but this is what I was focused on in the moment, at least. I didn't have my levels set before the open, but it gave us a really good opportunity to anticipate support off that 18 level. And from there, it led to the entry. So, I was not confident to do this on full size because of just kind of being caught off guard initially. So I wasn't doing this on 1,000 shares, but hey, I mean, at this point, it's prime time trading still. And let's see if there's some trade that we could take at least on the stock, right? At least something I can grab money off of. So if it's not full size, it's half size. And from there, it made a nice move back up towards 1850 and even higher. But that's where I ended up getting out, just right off that 1850 level under that 1863 price. Now, over time, hey, ended up making a pretty good bounce, but it failed to eventually break higher. It tried to actually here at this point. But when I was on my coaching call with one of our students, hey, I didn't have some of these levels plotted just yet. Actually, the only one, rather, I should say, I did not have plotted really was, well, the 19 level or 1898. So by the time it started to push back up here, I was not back in it, but I was looking for a move. And, I was on the call with one of my students just before, and obviously I'm answering questions that he had, sent over previous. And hey, if there's a move I can capture on this stock, then I'll go for it. But I wasn't as focused yet on 1898. I was not as focused yet on Friday's closing price at the time. Well, again, because I didn't have my damn levels set from pre-market. I didn't do my homework this morning. I was lazy. So I had to kind of improvise with my student Fernando. I'm like, all right, well, what's our next level here if there is a trade? And I went back. I'm like, well, you got the 1898 here, and I plotted it. I'm like, well, okay, well, that makes sense as to why it held so strongly right here as resistance. Now, from there, I told him, like, all right, well, the more times that this could look to nip and gnaw that level, perhaps it could look to make a better move over time. But just on the next test from there, it led to that reaction, right? It led to that big move shortly after. Not the big move that you'd want to see if you took the trade, but once it pulled back, it's like, okay, well, unless if it gets back up there soon enough, otherwise it's more bound to make a lower low. If it's not going to make a higher high, it's not guaranteed to make a lower low, but the probability of it making a lower low sharply increases, right? So at that point, once it really broke down here, we just kind of moved on, said, all right, well, I guess we'll kind of see what happens while I'm in Traders Talk or afterwards or whatever. So even here, just recently, I mean, I'm kind of just doing this one on the fly now, but as you can see, I'm not in MAR or anything really this time, but this didn't make my famed under and over here. It just kind of glossed over 18, right? See that there? If I was jumpy to take that trade looking for a bounce, I would not have taken that trade right there because I at least want to stick with my under and over rule, right? That, looking for a support level, at least in the sense of looking for a bounce, I'd rather see it make that under and over. So, transparently enough, if this was like really here at the time and I was kind of saying that to you and it bounced without me, I wouldn't have cared about missing 30 or so cents, 40 or so cents. There's always stocks that are going to make a move that are not in accordance to the strategy that you're, really using. So you just gotta kind of live with that and eat it a little bit. Maybe there is going to be a bounce over time here as soon as it's dragging back down. Maybe with this already kind of hitting 18 a few times or trying to hold over 18 a couple times, maybe the next time it comes down to 18, maybe just slashes right below that level and there's just no entry at all in that sense. You don't want to catch a falling knife. So you are looking for that under, then over. If this just breaks under and just stays damn under, that's it. I mean, even earlier, before it bounced, it broke under 18 here and dropped down like 20 cents immediately off the break of the level. So that's where pretty quickly, okay, well, it's dropping 20 cents insta from that level. All right, well, clearly support's being broken there for a bit. It's not just a, tiny, dinky little under and over. In the sense of over and under, this is a pretty good example of that, seeing a false breakout and resistance holding here, over, under, drop, right? Same thing happened here, over, under, drop. So you should know pretty quickly in that sense of looking for that reversal. That's all. All right, so I'm actually going to keep these levels up here because I didn't have them set prior to Traders Talk. So I got to make sure I'm prepped up for this afternoon if I'm looking to trade Mara at least, right? All right, so again, case in point is it's not just Josh being lazy on a given day. It's just we're coming off a holiday. So we're not really expecting a whole lot to be happening out the gate. I think there was the caucus last night. There was a little movement on the Trump stock DWAC and actually just popped before. So I'm happy I didn't really miss too much on this just now since it's now completely tanking. But, even this in pre-market, there was a chance for this to try and pop, but it wasn't even looking too good in pre-market at the time. So coming off a holiday, there really is not much out there that I'm really seeking as a great move. If it shows it's up 100% pre-market, if it shows it's up 50% pre-market, 30%, and it's trading millions of shares, then that's something I'd be more gravitated towards. And I didn't really set too many levels up on this one coming up. This next one I'm going to kind of just go over with you here. But the ELAB, I mean, this is in the trash now. It's been in the trash since 10 a.m. Completely filled the gap at this point. I'm going to give you a little history lesson before I go into the meat and potatoes of this trade here. But this stock was basically one of the two up big in pre-market that we were a lot more gravitated towards early on, right? So that's where I said, that's kind of where my initial focus was. But let's do a little history lesson here. I don't even know if this stock's still listed here. Well, hopefully it is. Yeah, VSME, they're probably not going to be soon. 38 cents now. Are you kidding me? I remember this like the back of my hands. I wish I can go back and actually show you the exact day. This stock back on October 5th, it was, broke all-time highs, new IPO just from a few days prior. We don't really trade IPOs too much. Now, in the event where it's breaking an all-time high, that's different. And if it's showing really good volume on the order book, meaning if level 3 here shows a very tight spread, and if level 3 shows a really filled in order book, buyers and sellers, big orders alike, it's tradable. So on this day, if you can at least believe it here, it doesn't look good, but this was a really good trade on this morning. It broke out from like $4 at the open, popped and broke new all-time highs. It was a really great trade for the first hour. But I remember this next part like the back of my hand because it ended up popping back over $8 at the time. And I jumped in the trade actually. And it popped up instantly like 50, 60 cents. As quickly as it popped up 50, 60 cents, it dropped back down to my level. And hey, if you've been around the block with us long enough, I've been, obviously here going on 10 years. I've learned the hard way at times, but you learn not to learn the hard way, right? So you learn to get out of the trade before the thing really corrects that much further. And thank God I did on that day, because look at what happened almost immediately after. You could basically see this just continue dropping down and down and down and down and down. And it kept going, right? Great trade at first, horrible trade over time. Follow along. ELAB, new IPO. Go back on the daily chart here. This is all the history that we have on this stock. It's an IPO back from like November. So all-time high was $4.24. And this morning in the pre-market session, at least, this stock was breaking all-time highs. It made a pretty good pop at first. Now, when it first made this move, I was pretty jumpy towards it, but the order book was not good. It's not what I wanted it to be. So I missed out on this pop, and I was waiting for the order book to fill in a lot more. And it really didn't fill in much more, but I said, all right, at least if we just do this on a really small size and we're not going to like do this too crazy, there is a case to see this make a nice pop. So this was actually a good trade in pre-market from me, where this broke. It was right here. Once it broke back above 350, and really the VWAP here it was, led to a good push. But, and this is the big but behind this, because of course it ended up going up a little bit more. It popped up a little bit higher, and it broke all-time highs technically, right? It broke above the, daily chart all-time high that we had at 424. So I was feeling really good about this trade. But as soon as it made that pop and it broke all-time highs, it pulled back and it immediately sank back down again. And I knew rather quickly. It reminded me, just I have that VSME trade in the back of my head permanently going forward. You don't forget a move like that over time. So once I saw this pull back after breaking all-time high, it just reminded me instantly, and I just got out. I forgot even where I got out on the trade. It was above 4, but it was just to just get the hell out. That's it. That's it. Run. And afterwards, well, there was a case to see it try again. There was. I mean, hey, there are stocks that gain our trust over time. Just look at, although unless it's tanking right now as I'm talking, look at LAES. The stock's been doing pretty good for us last few days. On the first day it popped, I wouldn't have expected it, but it's gaining our trust. It's certainly possible for that ELAB to gain our trust, but if it's not going to make that higher high over time, again, I kind of give you the greatest hits here every week in Traders Talk, all my famous catchphrases. But the difference between a stock and a car, again, the car does not go in reverse for you. The car does not magically put its foot on the gas pedal for you as you're in reverse. And the car does not go 60, 80 miles per hour the opposite direction, right? The car just stops. This goes in reverse for you. All right. So that's where you don't want to get stuck hoping and holding on to a day trade that we're calling out, let alone something that we have no experience with really trading before. We're not familiar with this stock at all. We've known it for a cup of coffee this morning, and that was it. That was pretty much it. So it wouldn't shock me if this only continues to pull back lower over time here. But, that was pretty much the two I wanted to kind of go over as far as like kind of trade analysis, at least there. Now, there's a bunch of questions I did want to get through, at least from email. So actually a couple that I had mentioned to my students here that I told them I'd get back to them in this workshop on actually. So first one actually sent in from last night from Ramesh. And, this was just kind of in accordance to Thinkorswim. So Ramesh was asking, according to Thinkorswim, only level 2 information is available. Where do we get level 3 information from? So when we use the phrases level 3 and level 4, that's kind of CTU code name. That's like CTU nickname, language for the order book for the data that you should be subscribing to and getting. What I mean by that is, and I mentioned this with TradeStation, but the same to be said with Thinkorswim. If you were to say to Thinkorswim, hey, let me get your level 3 data, or oh, let me get your level 4 data, they're not going to really know what you're talking about as much. They're going to say, hey, that's like for market makers. That's our nickname for the type of data that's available out there generally. So not every broker even has the type of data that Thinkorswim has or TradeStation has. When you're talking to Thinkorswim, mention specifically book map. That's what we nickname level 4. That's going to give you the data at least there. Now, I know there's a big transition with Schwab and Thinkorswim. We've been talking about this for months now. So, if you are not able to get book map data via Think or Swim, if you are not able to, then I would strongly suggest for you to go directly to the NASDAQ website, datastore.nasdaq.com. I'm typing that here in the chat board. Oh, it doesn't hyperlink. All right, give me a sec here. Rich, maybe you could hyperlink that there for me if you can. But basically, if you were to go to the link I'm going to type to you in the chat board there, again, that's data store, DATA store.nasdaq.com. Right from there, the NASDAQ Bookviewer is $15 a month. That is directly from the NASDAQ site. That's the one that Fausto and myself heavily recommend for anyone else, at least. Now, if you're on Thinkorswim, you should be able to get at least book map. That's what we nickname level 4. So that's what I'd recommend there. But if not, though, then the NASDAQ book viewer, and that's the link right there. So what's the difference, at least, between what we call level 2 and what we call level 3? That's a better question I could definitely answer there for Ramesh. So level 2 is my program right here, the colorful program with all the red, blue, yellow, beige, all the numbers and colors here. My level 3 is I nickname it. This is officially known as the TradeStation Matrix. So this is what we nickname level 3. This aggregates all of the orders at each price level together. It does the math for you. It adds up all of the orders being routed at each price level, regardless of the ECN or exchange. So just level 2 breaks that down more, makes it more specific for you to see. And if you don't have this type of program, or if you don't have quote unquote level 3, again, the NASDAQ book viewer would be great for that, then I'd say that it would be a little bit more difficult to only rely on the level 2 data. All right. During the trial period, we were given to understand that your entire strategy is to follow the money based on order flow analysis, which platform gives the total picture of the order flow, redirecting or reflecting all orders on various ECNs. So again, if you're on Thinkorswim, I'd say that you're in great hands there, because they've had this new, or at least recently new, partnership at this point with Bookmap. Again, Bookmap. So, talk to Thinkorswim about that. But otherwise, though, I would say TradeStation is a great brokerage. I'd say that Interactive Brokers is a great brokerage, very day trading friendly, and they have the type of data that we encourage traders to subscribe to. Those are the 3 best, I'd say. If you're on Fidelity Active Trader Pro, we have a few longtime students that use that, and it's a really sleek platform. I like Active Trader Pro too, from Fidelity. So, and of course, obviously Schwab Street Smart Edge. I'm kind of linking that in my head with Thinkorswim, mind you. So, really those are kind of your major ones that we would normally recommend. You don't want to have a online brokerage, meaning if you don't have the platform visibly downloaded on your computer, if you're just on www. etrade.com or tradestation.com, even if you're just on the web version, then I don't find that you're going to have as clean order execution compared to using the downloadable platform, at least. So to me, that plays a large part with my entries, at least. Pretty much if the brokerage is direct access, meaning if it has real-time buy and sell data, then you're good to go. All right. So actually, this plays on part with the question from Ramesh, actually, just before from Syed. Question from him, and he'd like to understand how to use the Bookviewer better. NASDAQ Bookviewer, that is. So actually, really good segue. Give me a moment. Pull this bad boy up right now. NASDAQ Bookviewer up here in full. One sec. Let me just make sure I'm good to go. Shares bid order. Ooh, nice and clean. They made it for me today. Good. All right. So Syed wants to understand how to use NASDAQ Bookviewer better. Watched a few videos of Fausto's, but not able to fully grasp the concept. Would you be going over this in real time? Absolutely. So, first and foremost, make sure with NASDAQ Bookviewer. Oh, and might I say, actually, just a little housekeeping here. I take an infinite amount of more time to break this down in our full classes, phases 1 and 2, namely. I take at least 3 separate 60-minute classes. I guess that's not infinite, is it? But we have 3 full 60-minute classes to go over level 3, the NASDAQ book viewer here, and otherwise like the matrix. So, using the NASDAQ book viewer, let's just go over a quick example. Make sure that this price field is checked off, because that's just where you're going to be able to kind of see the orders a lot easier. Let me actually do this. That's what was throwing me off there. Okay, so let's move around for a split second. We'll just kind of do a quick live example, something that is moving in a direction that we like. SPY is really choppy, so it might be a little tough. NVIDIA, AMD. Okay, AMD is a good one because it popped up early this morning. Simple trend. All right, so AMD is going to have some resistance. You could even use the filter button right here, and you can actually just filter this to only show a certain order size. So let's just really only show orders of 500 shares or larger, prices where there's only 500 shares or larger. So this is where I would show you right here on the NASDAQ book viewer at $160 right here. It changes with the color because the price is going up and down. So what I want you to focus on is the fact that there is a price here, 160. It has 81,848 shares on the sell side, meaning that that's resistance. You have that many shares looking to be sold. Now, the column to the right of that's even, at least for this example, that much more kind of, glaring. There's nearly 1,300 total orders out there making up the 81,500 plus shares. I mean, that's a huge difference in orders, in the number of orders, might I say. Even if that was 100 total orders making that up, I'd find that to be pretty large, a much larger number of orders compared to 17 or 11 or 26. I mean, this is 1,300 shares or 1,300 orders, might I say, making this total size up. So it just goes to show that at $160, you have a clear, definitive support level to work with there, or resistance level, might I say. If I said support, my apologies. 160 is a definitive resistance level to work with. All right. So, I mean, right now, I would not be expecting AMD to pop this 160 just yet. It has to test it the first time there. And normally, for the first test of big resistance, I would expect resistance to hold, meaning, it might make a pop and drop, or it might just hold it perfectly from there, and that's it. So, even if it does touch 160 later on today, the initial touch or test, I would be expecting a false breakout. Now, actually, really quick, let me jump over to YouTube, getting a chat right now. Mark, keep in mind, just join us inside our live trading room to get the full service of our Traders Talk workshop and really our full, live trading room. So I'm just catching this chat right now from Mark on YouTube. Please explain better level 3 and how to place trades with take profit and stop loss. So again, just in terms of the overall answer that I can give you, I need probably more hours on a hand than I can count, probably, to give you the full A to Z full service answer. I'm just catching this chat right now, so I really hope a lot of what we've covered already explained at least how to better use level three. But in terms of just the where to set stops, where to place your entries, I need a lot more time to work with students within, in our classes on that. Really go over several examples and just the mechanics of setting your order up. I don't know why that was even on market right there. That could have just been a quick touch right there. But normally using limit orders for any of our entries, and a lot of our entries are based on preparation. I mean, all of your entries should be based on preparation, but if you're not prepared to take a trade, then you don't know where your big levels are. And if you don't know where your big levels are to risk thousands and thousands of your hard-earned dollars, then that kind of sounds like gambling to me, my friend. So that's where I say I'm not here to just take a trade, right? And I feel that every one of us listening to this conversation are, pretty much in agreement with that. Like, obviously, yeah, of course, that makes sense. Well, we all love trading. We all love being here. This is fun, right? I mean, hey, be honest with you, if trading wasn't fun, probably wouldn't still be here after doing this for 10 years, right? I find this worth my time and fun, not literally just in the sense of making money. I mean, it is, but in the sense of the passion behind it. What that means is emotions can come into play that can take you away from your strategy. And perhaps you take a trade. Oh, this looks pretty good. Oh, Mara's making a bounce back up here. Maybe I could jump in over 18. And well, what's the overall trend here recently and from earlier and yesterday or Friday? And just there's a time and a place, right? Now, I say that when it comes to having more confidence than not. There could always be a time and a place to take a trade, but I'm not always going to feel overtly confident to do so. So, as a new trader joining us here, I just want you to realize it takes a little time to shake the emotion off of, oh shit, this is moving up without me. Ah, damn. Guys, market's not permanently closing outside of holidays like we just had for Martin Luther King Day. We're going to be back at it the next day. There might be a trade in 10 minutes from now that we call out after we finish up Traders Talk that is actually a much better trade on the eyes, and it's easier for us to set up. And, there's more confidence to take that type of trade, right? Or even later on today, let's just say during a more appropriate trading time, 3:30, there could be something even easier there, right? So that's where I just want to generally say I'm not smiling and doing backflips if I miss out on a giant move and the stock's pumping up without me. But if I didn't have the time to prep that trade up, and if I didn't know where my big levels were, I can't beat myself up too much. Just move on to the next trade. That's kind of just my mindset. It's easy to kind of blurt that mindset out to you here when I'm not in a trade right now, when we're, in a workshop. But you have to do your best to try and keep that mindset at all times. There's a lot of factors that could take your that could really mess up your psyche when it comes to trading. Not just bad things, good things. You might be killing it on a morning, and you might not really, really be too focused on your stops after a certain point. You might be up so much, like, oh, okay, let's keep it going. Right. We'll talk more about this in our classes. More, even the phase 2 course coming up in a week from now. We'll talk more about that with discipline, trader psychology, etc. So, really quick, email from one of our students here as well. I was going to mention both Mara and Coinbase, but you were talking about it in the trading room. I have options trades on both. I may eke out a win on Mara, but Coinbase not so much at the moment. Maybe we could discuss the overall market and what is going on there. I'm focused on classes and training this week. So again, this is from an unnamed student. I did not name the student. So the reason I did not name is because this is a similar conversation that I had. It could have been with this student or someone else, but it's just to say this. What's the direction of the stock market, folks, the last 3 months? Could I ask you that? What's the direction the last 3 months? Uh, what's the direction the last year? I'm not looking for curveball questions either. I'm not asking like up, then flat, then down, then up or down, right? Over the last 365 days, up or down? from November, which is about 2 months ago, certainly up. So that's the answer to the first question. And then back from this time last year, up. We are moving up, right? That's the general direction. And not only from the last year, but of course, where we look more on a macro level, aside from COVID, what is the direction? For anyone, waiting for the grass to turn purple instead of green, I hate to break it to you. The grass is going to be green. And what I mean by that is it's a silly comparison, but if you're waiting for a pullback and a drop, it might happen. Maybe it will. And if you're bearish and the market pulls back, I am rooting you on. But that's an if. And that's not based on any sort of charting or any sort of trend, right? That's the first two things that come to mind with talking about not just a day trade, which we've been doing mainly here, but for my student, more on a macro level, more on an overall markets basis, right? And, again, to be transparent, that was a conversation I had with a couple students, and I think this one as well from months ago, right? And we are still pushing up. Now, not to this specific student and to others, but to actually longtime students that have been with me for well, not even long time, might I say, but really, if you've been with me back from even August, I was looking for a melt up in the stock market really at that time. And I was wrong at first because we pulled back into September, into October, but then obviously we got what I was looking for. But it's largely based off the overall trend. So that's what I'm saying here. I'm still bullish. I'm looking for more of a pop over time here across the markets. Why not? You have a nice trend here. And now if you can kind of see resistance get flipped into support, a very loose line, might I say, I'm just placing here, but roughly around 472 on a number of weeks in a row, it seems like it was holding pretty strong. I could probably polish that line up a little bit better, but either way, I mean, it's pretty good. Well, look what's happening right now. Even this week so far, to begin, we've had a good bounce, and we're holding over 472. So, unless if we continue to hold back under that price, I wouldn't be overtly jumpy to look for a bearish move. And even if that level does break and this drops off a tiny amount, well, you still have to take it level by level here. It looks like roughly 458, 459 was a pretty good level below that. I mean, that would have to be broken next for the next leg down from. So even if you start off good on a bearish move with the market here, like if you were to get that coming up, you're not out of the weeds just yet. And it's just really to say, look what happened over time. For anyone waiting for the next pandemic or next big drop or recession in the market, I don't know how long you'll be waiting. Maybe it's not too long. Maybe it's a long time from now. I don't have that answer because the charts are telling me right now, at least, that that's not my focal point. So once I start to see a true case of lower highs build and really more so kind of seeing a lower low over time, then that would be something for me to focus on as a potential short. Like just this is very shoot from the hip here because I wasn't looking to go short as much around this time. But it's just, hey, once this ended up kind of breaking from this little consolidation area here, I wasn't really expecting a strong bounce just yet, right? Once it makes the lower low, all right, well, that's a bit more confirmation to see more of a downturn, right? So that's just overall when it comes to the SPY and the overall markets. But the same to be said for pretty much most stocks. Something like Coinbase is a little different because if Bitcoin does run up really strongly heading into this year, and at some point, if the S&P uh, goes the other way, if there is divergence there, then what way would Coinbase pop or drop? What way would it move? Because they own so much Bitcoin that, hey, maybe it goes up with the value of Bitcoin going up. But if it's a major U.S. equity that follows, the S&P or that, and the Dow's dropping, you don't have that answer. So it's a little tougher for a stock like Coinbase or even a stock like Mara in that sense. But just overall markets, you gotta respect the overall trends. And if you haven't yet, I hope you're not down a lot of money. It's as simple as that. Go and counter trend. You either need to be very high probability trader in order to have the confidence to trade real size. You're not going to have the confidence and you'll continue to do it without kind of learning the lesson of you'll probably get more meat off the bone working with the trend compared to going against it. Or you'll lose enough to where you just say, all right, well, I don't really think this is for me. And we don't want that part to happen because we want you to at least focus on going with the trend first. The more that we could at least do that, then we're going to gain confidence over time with knowing when it's more appropriate to go with the trend versus certainly going against it. All right. So, really quick, folks, just got a couple more emails to go through here. They might not even be question emails, actually. It might be just kind of yeah, like here's one really quick email from Kent actually, just saying, thanks for your email. I've been trading AMD in this morning and watching the SPY. So hope Kent has been doing pretty good on that AMD trade. I know one of our gold students, Tiago, called it out in pre-market off of 150. And I said to him right away, which I mean, how could you not say to him? It was like such a good call out. It was a good setup. It was just, yeah, I mean, if it could break over 150, there is a case to see a decent move. I would not have expected up 8% today, but man, for Kent or Tiago that may have jumped in on that AMD trade, I hope you killed it. Kent basically just saying he uses, quote unquote level 3, and he has for a while. It's a big help. He's interested in learning more about Bookmap, level 4 as we nickname it. So, again, that's something I could dive a lot further into in our main curriculum. I did show it a lot here in our classes in this workshop just before. So I hope that you learned a little bit more about it as I kind of showed Mara and went through the opening bell print there and things of that nature. But definitely, if you want to chat me just on the side, I can go over that a little bit more in a private chat, but a lot further in our main program, the gold course there. Last one from Syed, actually. You had to send this one actually just before we started Traders Talk as well. So one stock, if you can cover, Citigroup. See, I expected it to drop after the negative earnings and bad quarter, but instead it went the other way. Let me know what you have to say on this. So, to a loose degree, right, you could say, well, hey, if the markets keep moving upward, then it's going to be tougher for this to go really that sharply down on its own news. Uh, but otherwise, yeah, I would figure with down earnings, maybe, and I don't know if this actually happens. I didn't say this, but like, let's just say if they uh, lowered their guidance. I mean, to me, that's even more of a reason to try and go short, right? So when did they have their earnings? That's the question that I don't know. Was it from the 11th? Was it from the 11th this gap down? That part I'm not really too fond, not too sure on just there. But either way, just to say on this trade, well, level 3 and level 4 do play a big part with knowing, is it going to continue dropping or is it more prone to make a bounce over time, right? So I'm just going to use this from today, just from this morning, mind you. But we'll see if there's anything that popped up here on level 4 for this Citibank trade. Actually, I'll kill two birds with one stone. Going to go over Citibank for Syed and going to go over Bookmap for Kent as we wrap up. So let me ask us here in the chat right now, Manny, Jill, Rob, Jeff, Alex, all of us here. Where do you see the dark red line going across the page there? The dark red line going across the page. Yeah, Herb and Sam, 51-15-ish, 51, like right there, right? Pretty much perfect. So 51-15-ish. It's about 11, 12,000 shares on the buy side. For a $5 stock, 11, 12,000 shares, not really that big. For a $51 stock, I'd say it's pretty decent. Bookmap shows dark red line here going across the entire page here, really prior to the opening bell. So that was at 51.15. Basically right there. Just a couple pennies off, might I say. But it broke under it it dropped off from it here, and that's where you're thinking, oh, okay, well, broke below support like that and dropped. So, all right, well, I guess support should become resistance at first. And it tried to become resistance there initially. But over time, once it begins to move above it, if it could hold back above where we had that order on the bid, it leaves to a pretty good chance where this might look to reverse, right? Easy to say in hindsight. I didn't call this out this morning. We just went through this really fast here, but hey, we had that line on level 4 from, level 3 and level 4 otherwise at 51.15, that 12,000 share order on the bid. And the more it holds over that price, then there is a chance for this to look to reverse and make a move back upward, right? So although this ended up bottoming out actually around the same time as Mara did, around that 9:45 time, kind of unexpectedly compared to the Cyper clock, well, it ended up making a pretty good move up, right? And it really started to make that better move. Well, hey, around 10:15, a little before 10:30, a little before 10:30, but at least you had time to wait. And there was some good support to see there from that iceberg, and timed up pretty nicely with the Cyper clock there going into 10:30. All right, folks, I got to jump off right now. I got a long day of coaching ahead on the stick, pretty much up until 2:30 this afternoon, right? So coming up just at 2:30 p.m., I will be back on the mic just for the afternoon meeting. If you're on social media right now, we encourage you to join us inside our live trading room, get the full service of our main chat board, get the chance to speak to fellow students and instructors like myself, and of course, the man himself, that being Fausto. But if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me over a quick email, josh@ctutrading.com. Otherwise, just scan that QR code on the top left of the stream, get you access to our live trading room for a week-long trial, get all these workshops recorded for you there on our student portal shown on our website. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at least next week, and we'll